Two men, two different decades, one shared obsession, turning words into weapons. One preached from the dusty mosques of Cairo, the other from behind a webcam in New Mexico. Neither ever pulled a trigger, yet both left a trail of blood across continents. What made them so dangerous? And why do their voices still echo today, long after they're gone? Stay with me until the end. What you'll hear might change the way you see terrorism forever. Welcome to Red Dossier.
Before we move on to the next part, please give me a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for listening.
In the history of modern terrorism, some figures are bomb makers, some are financiers, and others, far more dangerously, are ideologues. Among the most influential of this last kind were Anwar al-Awlaki and Omar Abdel-Rahman, two men from different corners of the world who weaponized language instead of explosives and became architects of global jihadist thought. Their names are etched into the timeline of terrorism, not because they pulled triggers or detonated devices, but because they convinced others to do it. Anwar al-Awlaki, born in 1971 in New Mexico to Yemeni parents, was a charismatic American imam who used fluent English, digital media, and Western cultural fluency to radicalize a generation of young Muslims. He was labeled by U.S. intelligence as the bin Laden of the Internet and was directly linked to over 20 terrorist plots, including the Fort Hood shooting in 2009 and the attempted Christmas Day airline bombing the same year. His influence extended beyond borders, and borders no longer mattered. His pulpit was the Internet, and his weapon was narrative. Omar Abdel-Rahman, born in 1938 in Egypt and blind since infancy, was a traditional firebrand cleric who embodied an older model of religious extremism. Known widely as the Blind Sheikh, he rose to prominence during Egypt's Islamist insurgency in the 1980s and became the spiritual leader of Al-Jama'ah al-Islamiyya. By the early 1990s, he had relocated to the United States, preaching in New York and New Jersey, and ultimately became the ideological force behind the 1993 World Trade Center bombing. He was convicted in 1995 for plotting to blow up major New York landmarks and received a life sentence in federal prison. Both men were religious scholars. Both men were hailed as voices of moral authority by their followers, and both men used their influence to incite violence on a transnational scale. But the similarities end there. Their methods, their environments, and their personas diverged sharply. One fluent in the tools of modern media, the other grounded in traditional street preaching and face-to-face manipulation. Al-Awlaki's early life was marked by academic privilege and dual identity. He earned a degree in engineering from Colorado State University and later pursued religious studies in Yemen. By his late 20s, he was delivering sermons at mosques in San Diego and Falls Church, attracting a loyal youth following. Early on, he was even consulted by the U.S. government as a moderate voice after 9/11, before his radical shift shocked intelligence analysts. That shift, quiet but steady, saw him move from community leadership to online jihadist advocacy, culminating in his alignment with al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula. Abdel-Rahman, in contrast, emerged from political turbulence and religious conservatism. He studied Islamic theology at Al-Azhar University, one of the oldest and most prestigious Islamic institutions. Although blind, His fiery sermons and unwavering ideology made him a central figure in Egypt's militant Islamist movement. After surviving imprisonment in Egypt, he fled to Afghanistan and later entered the US on a tourist visa despite being on a terrorist watch list. From a mosque in Brooklyn, he orchestrated a plot to destroy bridges, tunnels, and even the United Nations headquarters. His charisma was intense, aggressive, unpolished. His strength lay in inciting anger, not seducing with polish. Psychologically, al-Awlaki was controlled, dual-natured, and manipulative, publicly condemning terrorism while privately inspiring it. According to declassified FBI interviews, he met with 2 of the 9/11 hijackers and maintained email contact with Nidal Hassan, the Fort Hood shooter, encouraging him to act. His mind operated like a strategic amplifier, distanced from violence, but surgically involved in its logic. Abdel-Rahman, on the other hand, was impulsive, overt, and apocalyptic in tone. His sermons did not imply violence, they demanded it. His ideology, rooted in Sayyid Qutb's writings, framed the secular state as inherently evil and jihad as a religious obligation. Though lacking technical sophistication, his emotional influence on followers was profound. It was he who inspired Ramzi Youssef, the bomber behind the first World Trade Center attack, and sought to ignite a larger, coordinated offensive across New York. By the time both men became targets of US national security, the damage had been done. The FBI labeled al-Awlaki a threat to Homeland Security, unlike any previous terrorist figure, because of his unique reach into Western-born extremists. Abdel-Rahman, despite being imprisoned for over 2 decades, remained a martyr figure for radical Islamists until his death in 2017. Part 1 of their story reveals this. Not all terrorists carry guns. Some carry ideas sharp enough to cut through borders, laws, and decades. And the most dangerous ones aren't those shouting in caves, but those who know how to make a message go viral. The paths taken by Anwar al-Awlaki and Omar Abdel-Rahman were shaped by different eras, but their ultimate goals converged: the dismantling of Western political structures through ideological warfare. While Abdel-Rahman operated within the physical world, organizing cells, planning attacks, and issuing orders directly, al-Awlaki became the prototype of the digital age radicalizer, embedding his message in online lectures, blog posts, and encrypted communications. Their tactics reflected not only their personalities, but also the technologies and social environments available to them. Al-Awlaki's operational model was decentralized, insidious, and surgical. From 2006 until his death in 2011, he published hundreds of hours of lectures on jihad, Islamic jurisprudence, and anti-American theology. His writings, particularly 44 Ways to Support Jihad, became foundational texts for self-radicalized attackers. His voice was found on the laptops and phones of terrorists from San Bernardino to London. Intelligence reports by the US Department of Homeland Security noted that his materials were cited in at least 25 terrorist plots globally. Unlike Abdel-Rahman, al-Awlaki did not command troops or manage logistics. Instead, he functioned as an ideological franchiser. He offered the framework, the justification, and the inspiration, leaving execution to his audience. In contrast, Abdel-Rahman was steeped in the logistical, face-to-face world of insurgent planning. He maintained close ties to Al-Jama'a al-Islamiyah, one of the most violent Islamist groups in Egypt, during the 1980s and 1990s. Upon arriving in the United States, he built a local network of loyalists, mostly Egyptian immigrants and disaffected Muslims, often preaching in Arabic at mosques in Jersey City and Brooklyn. He was not a subtle man. His sermons called directly for violence, urging his listeners to take up arms against the United States. His followers, including El Sayed Nosser and Ramzi Youssef, would carry out the 1993 World Trade Center bombing, which killed 6 people and injured over 1,000. The FBI foiled a second plot, codenamed Day of Terror, which aimed to destroy bridges, tunnels, and federal buildings across New York City. These were not fantasies. They were blueprints with explosives, maps, and real operatives in place. Psychologically, the contrast deepens. Al-Awlaki cultivated ambiguity in the early stages of his radicalization. He continued to maintain an image of moderation in mainstream media while privately shifting towards extremism. Former CIA analysts have described him as a bifurcated persona, publicly respectable, privately radical. He exploited the disillusionment of Western-born Muslims, presenting jihad not as a foreign battle, but as a personal moral imperative. His reach extended to individuals like Roshanara Choudhury in the UK and Tamerlan Tsarnaev in the US, neither of whom had formal contact with terrorist groups but were inspired entirely through Al-Awlaki's content. Abdel-Rahman, on the other hand, was a man consumed by conviction, not ambiguity. His speeches were emotional, driven by anger, and grounded in a binary worldview, Islam versus everything else. His rhetoric was apocalyptic, laced with historical grievances and theological absolutism. Psychologists studying his followers noted their susceptibility to charismatic control, a dynamic seen in other cult-like movements. He provided spiritual license for violence and a sense of divine mission to those who followed him. In terms of damage, the numbers speak for themselves. Al-Awlaki's ideological influence is linked to attacks that have killed over 100 people across multiple continents. His reach continues posthumously through digital archives, inspiring copycats even a decade after his death. Abdel-Rahman's operations, while more centralized, had more immediate but geographically limited impact. The 1993 bombing, though massive at the time, did not achieve its full destructive goal. Youssef's plan was to topple one tower into the other. Still, it was a psychological precursor to 9/11, and Abdel-Rahman's ideas helped lay that groundwork. Their downfall, though inevitable, came through different cracks. Abdel-Rahman was brought down by old-fashioned surveillance and undercover infiltration. The FBI inserted informants into his circle and recorded conversations detailing the Day of Terror plot. These tapes became the cornerstone of his 1995 conviction, along with witness testimonies and physical evidence. Al-Awlaki's fate came from above, literally. In 2011, a US drone strike targeted his convoy in northern Yemen, killing him instantly. He was the first American citizen intentionally killed by the US government without trial, prompting legal debates that persist to this day. Both men were seen by their followers as martyrs, but by law enforcement and intelligence experts, they represented evolving threats, one analog, one digital. Abdel-Rahman showed how religious extremism could operate within US borders long before it became a national priority. Al-Awlaki proved that terrorism no longer needed to cross physical borders at all. It could cross firewalls, time zones, and generations, powered only by words. The legacies of Anwar al-Awlaki and Omar Abdel-Rahman are not buried with them. They live on in videos, writings, court transcripts, and the shattered lives left in the wake of their ideas. Their stories are not simply about two men who turned to extremism. They are about how ideology mutates across borders and decades, adapting to new tools, new audiences, and new vulnerabilities. Their ends were different, but both served as case studies for how belief, once radicalized, can outlive its originator. Abdel-Rahman spent his final years in a US federal prison, blind, ailing, and unrepentant. He died in 2017 at age 78. His body returned to Egypt, where thousands attended his funeral. Though physically removed from his movement, he remained a symbolic figure in jihadist circles. His sermons were still circulated online, and his image appeared on posters and propaganda, especially among factions in North Africa. For groups like ISIS and Al-Qaeda's Egyptian branches, he was a spiritual predecessor, a reminder that even behind bars, ideas could smolder and spread. Al-Awlaki, though killed in a drone strike in 2011, never really disappeared. His lectures are still accessible in fragments online, despite repeated takedown efforts by Western governments and tech platforms. Unlike Abdel-Rahman, whose influence was tightly connected to his physical presence, Al-Awlaki's reach was designed for longevity. He built a distributed library of radical content that functioned independently of time and geography. In 2015, the Charlie Hebdo attackers in Paris cited him as an influence. In 2016, the Orlando nightclub shooter did the same. His words had become viral ideology, searchable, shareable, deadly. The question of who was more dangerous remains a point of debate among counterterrorism experts. One inspired a cell to place a truck bomb beneath the World Trade Center. The other reached through a screen and pushed dozens of disconnected individuals toward acts of violence. Abdel-Rahman's model was physical, coordinated, rooted in real-world conspiracy. Al-Awlaki's model was scalable, borderless, and psychologically seductive. Comparing them is like weighing a precision sniper against a pathogen. Different mechanics, same lethality. Their differences also expose deeper insights about how terrorism has evolved. Abdel-Rahman's influence peaked in an era when physical infrastructure was the battlefield. Bridges, buildings, cities. Al-Awlaki came to power when information itself became the battlefield. His role was less that of a general and more that of an engineer, designing a narrative that others could replicate and adapt. Abdel-Rahman was a commander. Al-Awlaki was a coder. The errors that led to their downfall also reflect the evolution of law enforcement and intelligence. Abdel-Rahman trusted the wrong person. An informant, Ahmad Salam, infiltrated his inner circle and recorded hours of damning evidence. These tapes, played back in court, revealed not only the plot to bomb New York City landmarks, but also the religious framework used to justify it. Al-Awlaki, by contrast, was too remote for informants to penetrate. His mistake was in his growing profile. His own voice became evidence. Intelligence agencies tracked him through metadata, communication patterns, and surveillance drones. His death, legally justified under the authorization for use of military force, remains one of the most controversial U.S. counterterrorism actions of the 21st century, sparking debates on due process, executive power, and civil rights. In the broader landscape of global terrorism, Both figures can be compared to contemporaries like Pablo Escobar or Felix Gallardo, not because they trafficked drugs, but because they operated empires of influence. Escobar controlled loyalty through money and violence. Al-Awlaki controlled it through meaning and narrative. Gallardo built networks across borders with human connections. Abdel-Rahman did the same with spiritual authority. When viewed side by side, their contrasting legacies offer a chilling lesson. Terrorism is not a fixed shape. It adapts. Abdel-Rahman brought jihad into the heart of New York through physical cells and local operatives. Al-Awlaki ensured it stayed there long after, hidden in earbuds and browser histories. One was arrested and tried in open court, the other executed without trial. Both were mourned by extremists and studied by experts, but neither was forgotten. The final question they leave us with is not how they lived or died, but why their ideas still resonate. What makes a young person, born in a free society, listen to a man like Al-Awlaki and feel seen? What makes someone sitting in a mosque in Brooklyn follow Abdel-Rahman's voice toward explosives? Is it ideology, isolation, injustice, identity? That question remains unanswered and perhaps unanswerable. But in asking it, we begin to understand the real battlefield isn't always out there. Sometimes it's inside the mind. If you've made it this far, thank you for your time and attention. The stories of Anwar al-Awlaki and Omar Abdel-Rahman aren't just about history. They're warnings. They show us how dangerous ideas can be when wrapped in faith, charisma, and timing. So now I ask you, who is more dangerous, those who act or those who inspire others to act? Let's talk about it in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you found this deep dive valuable, please hit the like button, subscribe for more dossiers like this, and turn on notifications so you never miss a story. The war for minds is still going, and we're here to uncover every piece of it. See you in the next episode.